program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the Eau Claire Area School Board. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
This meeting to order. Good evening. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law notifications?
Yes.
Would you kindly lead us on a roll call, please?
Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Commissioner Torres?
Here.
Commissioner Gu?
Here.
Commissioner Nordin?
Here.
Commissioner Bika? Here. Commissioner Harder?
Here.
Commissioner Klinkhammer?
Commissioner Klinkhammer is under the weather. We have quorum. We can get started in the open session. For those of you who are able, please stand. A pledge of allegiance will be offered. Tonight's student pledge leader is Mua Chi, her.
That's me.
I know, that's you. It's a third grader from Sherman Elementary. And Principal Dimmock said Mua Chi is a magnetic presence in the school, and we can really feel that tonight. His positive outlook is welcomed by both students and staff alike. Mua Chi regularly goes out of his way to ensure everybody at Sherman has a friend to count on, and that is wonderful. Would you kindly lead us in the pledge tonight?
A pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our next point in the agenda is a public forum. Citizens may address the board to express viewpoints or concerns on agenda or non-agenda items. Each citizen will be allowed up to 4 minutes to address the board, addressing he or she has additional or new information that has not been previously shared at the meeting. The school board will not hear personal complaints of school personnel nor any person connected with the school system in a public forum. We have 7 speakers tonight, and the first one is Ms. Leng Kong. Please identify yourself and state your address. Come forward, please.
Nhớ rằng của luôn bề hồ Lina Kong 2028 13th Street. Bây giờ cho thay lù, và giờ bán lo chấp lời nhớ rồi họ lúc rõ đi chưa nào. Bây tôi mà nó tôi thả cho bây giờ đi nữa bây ua. Bây xã có nên nó bây lúc xua chơi thia bây giờ đi nữa bây ua mà nó.
Dolores Camejo, 710 West Bruce Street. Entendemos que el Departamento de Recursos Humanos está en el proceso de actualizar nuestra descripción de trabajo y sentimos la necesidad de ser escuchados.
Hello. Maribel Real Ebeling, 4514 Heavenwood Lane. Imagine being a non-speaking student who experiences this lack of understanding daily. To interpret what was just said in Hmong and in Spanish, we're here tonight as members of the Bilingual Education Assistant Work Group, who also represent the largest ethnic employee group in the district, We're here to present our concern for equitable compensation for the work that we would do. We understand that HR has implemented a new process to update job descriptions, and we feel that it is necessary for you to hear from us as well. We work with limited English proficient students, providing them with an equitable education in the classroom. We make this possible because of our bilingual ability to work with each student in their first language. In addition, we're knowledgeable about the linguistic and cultural differences which may affect English learners, students. Through this understanding, we're not only able to help students succeed academically, but we are also able to make personal connections with the students. These relationships are significant and impactful as they open the doors to making each student feel comfortable in an environment that is otherwise extremely challenging.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Kirsten Alvarez.
Yes, my name is Kirsten Alvarez. I live at 1515 South Farwell Street. To clarify our work as an interpreter, we convert one spoken language into another spoken language, or as translators, we convert the written language into another written or spoken language. Unlike other interpreters in the district, other interpreter positions in the district, or in other industries, there is no certification or licensure for bilingual educational interpreters or translators. This is no fault of our own, but is something that could be perceived as a downfall to some. However, this is surely not the case. Instead, our requirements are many and include being fluent in speaking, reading, and writing in English and another language, as well as being informed and knowledgeable about many different content areas. This often involves preparation that requires extended time on the part of the BEA to further assist EL students in grasping concepts from across the broad range of subject materials and grade levels.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jessica Lennox Moran.
Hello. My name is Jessica Lennox, 5348 Wingate Drive. So for purposes of comparison, we emailed you about the different interpreter positions in the district. You can see that the work we do is much more complicated and extensive due to the language barriers. For example, we interpret and or translate for English learning students, their parents, their teachers, their administrators, and other school staff. We also interpret and or translate for parent-teacher conferences, IEP meetings, standardized exams, team meetings, and other events at school. Perhaps the largest difference is that we work collaboratively with classroom teachers to give remedial or additional instruction in content areas so students can understand and work independently. We bridge the language barrier every day. Without us, our students' achievement gap would be greatly affected in a negative way.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lizzie Castro.
My name is Lizzie Castro and I live at 4312 Crest Court. The Eau Claire Area School District claims a value of diversity and is understood to be an equal opportunity employer. However, based on our experiences ranging from 1 to 33 years of loyalty and commitment to the district, we do not feel as though the district staff represents our student population and diversity in the way it should. In addition, the low compensation we receive for the work we put in to make the district fair and accessible for all those students does not show an appreciation for our diversity. So we ask for a voice in the conversation regarding an updated compensation review. If all students are entitled to an equitable education, shouldn't all interpreters be entitled to an equitable compensation?
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Peter Gallagher.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Pete Caraher, and I'm from SEPTA, the Special Ed PTA, and we are hosting a resource fair for families and caregivers of special needs kids and young adults on Monday, March 9th at the L.E. Phillips Indoor Sports Center. We have over 30 vendors lined up to come through and talk to parents and caregivers about what they do and what they have available in the area. And we also are going to have some activities in the sport court for kids while their parents are getting valuable knowledge on resources in the area. So please pass on to your friends and family about this great resource fair. It's the first time they've done it in the Valley, and so thank you very much for your time.
And those were all our speakers for tonight in the open forum. We appreciate your input and appreciate your work as well. Our next point in the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hardwick.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. Good evening, everyone. First thing I'd like to do is to review the upcoming events for the school board, of which there are only 3. On February 25th, the Policy and Governance Committee will meet at 8 a.m., and the Budget Development Committee will meet at 1:30 p.m. here in the Administration Building. And on March 2nd, there will be a school board meeting, and that will take place at 7 p.m. here in the Administration Building. So tonight we're pleased to make some recognitions, and we'll begin with some student recognitions. We're very pleased to have 2 athletes from the ECASD compete at the Youth Olympic Games in Switzerland this month. Our first student is Charlie Thompson. Charlie, are you here? There you are. Stand up, Charlie. Charlie's a junior at Memorial. Hi, yes, give him a hand. And he was one of 4 junior curlers from the United States to qualify for the games, and beating out 10 other teams to represent Team USA. Charlie and his team made it to round 48 of the games, and we're just pleased that you were there and that you were representing us, and congratulations. And our second student is Landon Lee. And Landon, are you here? Oh, there he is. And Landon is a junior at North High School, and he competed with the U.S. mixed ski jumping team, finishing 11th place at the games. Quite an achievement. So we want to congratulate both Charlie and Landon for a job well done and for representing their schools in the district in the community. It's a really big deal, so thank you. And then moving locally, in January, the Eau Claire Dune Rotary Club recognized 4 outstanding ECASD seniors and youth, I hope I'm saying this right, Rotars? I don't know, Rotars. From Memorial, Catherine Becker and Jeremiah Becker were both recognized. Are you here? In the back? Okay. And from North, Harper Dilly and Sarah Arellano were recognized. Are you here? These students participate in a number of different activities and sports. They volunteer in different community projects, and they have all demonstrated exemplary service to the entire Eau Claire community, and we thank them for their leadership. I think it's very inspiring that others outside the school district are seeing your work and recognizing that publicly, and we wanted to recognize it as well, so congratulations. So this is a very special evening in terms of recognizing 2 very special business partners who have been major supporters of Prairie Ridge's Fight Against Hunger project. First, we'd like to thank Feed My People Food Bank, and they are represented this evening by Emily Moore. Emily, would you come to the podium and with Heidi? So I think, a lot of people know the work that Prairie Ridge does in terms of fighting hunger, and Feed My People have played a very significant role in supporting that project. They helped Prairie Ridge start the first school food pantry in ECASD. Feed My People took Prairie Ridge on as a pilot program, and they've been working together ever since. Since 2013, this small pantry at Prairie Ridge has distributed 140,000 pounds of food to families who attend Prairie Ridge. Feed My People accommodates Prairie Ridge with special deliveries and special requests unique to the early learning program. And ECSD and Prairie Ridge are so appreciative that Feed My People are always thinking of the needs, not only of this group at Prairie Ridge, but the needs of all people in the community who have food insecurity. And Emily, I think everyone knows of your efforts, but we are so very, very grateful. Thank you. And the second partner that we want to thank is Asher Lasting Exteriors, and they are represented this evening by Chad Asher. So Chad and his company have supported Prairie Ridge's projects from the very beginning of their existence. He is part of the Fight Against Hunger Committee and has attended every night to fight hunger and helped build Prairie Ridge's hoop house and raised garden beds. And if you haven't seen them, you should go drive by and see them. They're fabulous. His company has donated prizes for Prairie Ridge's silent auction, proceeds from their booth at the Home and Garden Show, turkeys and meal fixings for families, and even personal care products from their annual picnic that were donated by their staff. So Chad, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And then last but not least, I just wanted to update you on the Family Advisory Council. They met on February 4th, and they were provided input on features that they would like to see. They gave us ideas for helping us to design or purchase a district app that would provide information for families. And they received a presentation on what we're doing in Eau Claire at all levels to support social and emotional learning. And we had a great conversation with families, and they want to know more. So we'll be updating them in the next few months, and you as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hardwick. Our next point in the agenda is the Board President's report. My report tonight is brief. I'd like to report that the board has been busy reviewing applications in the process of our new superintendent search, and that we are ready to move to our next stage, which is phone interviews. So we wanted you to know that, and be ready to receive further reporting on the process. That's it for tonight. Tonight we don't have our student representatives. We'll send them a note reminding them of our meetings. We'll move on to our other reports. School board committee reports. Let's begin with budget development.
Thanks. Good evening. Budget development did meet last week on February 11th. We talked about the employee engagement committee and refined some of the wording for the charge on that we hope to bring to the board here soon. And also went over our budget development work list. We're meeting again next week on the 25th at 1 p.m.
Thank you. Do we have a report on LEAP? Ms. Kohler?
This month's LEAP meeting was postponed just because some of the information that we were looking forward to hearing isn't quite ready yet.
Thank you. How about demo and trends?
Yes, Demo and Trends met on February 13th at 4:30, and the meeting was highlighted by a data review, many conversations about information gathering and exploring options. They looked at things like square footage into outdoor space per student, academic achievement and class size. We took a look at a populated heat map, really to get at where growth is occurring. They do have a timeline, and the next few months really focus on data collection, and they are looking at trying to bring a recommendation to the board sometime in October.
Thank you very much. Policy and Governance met last Tuesday, and we are ready to present to the full board policy proposal that relates to our connection with the Public Schools Foundation for your consideration. Am I missing someone? No? Okay. Our next point is a legislative update. Dr. Nordin.
So over the past week, the governor and the legislature have presented competing plans for using the state's projected budget surplus. The governor's proposal included a $250 million increase in education funding and $130 million in property tax relief. Part of that, just to highlight some of it, was an increase to special education reimbursement funding to 34% of costs in fiscal year 2021. That change alone was projected to be just over $1 million in additional funding for ECASD students. And as a reminder, private voucher schools in the state are reimbursed at a 90% rate. And public schools are forced to pay out of their own budgets to send students to private schools. ECASD spends roughly $2 million of public taxpayer money annually to send students to private voucher schools. In the legislature, on the other hand, a bill was introduced that includes property tax relief but does not include any increases to supporting public schools. A hearing on this bill was held today in the Joint Finance Committee and is expected to see floor votes in the Senate on Wednesday and the Assembly on Thursday. This does mean that there is still time for you to communicate with your representatives in Madison and tell them that you support additional public funding for public schools, especially in a system where the legislature spends public dollars funding private schools at a higher rate than districts like ECASD. This has been an editorial by me. Finally, an update to Assembly Bill 442, which would raise the age of sale for tobacco and nicotine products to 21, has been amended so that it now only includes vapor products if those products contain nicotine. This means that other vape products would not be affected and would still be available to high school age students. In addition, the bill was amended to only apply to licensed retailers and would now not apply to unlicensed vape shops. This obviously lessens the scope of the bill. Its companion bill, Senate Bill 364, has not been amended and still awaits a committee hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nordin. Our next point in the agenda is our consent resolution agenda. The board will consider approval of the consent resolution agenda items. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. This will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and voted on separately. The items are minutes of February 3rd, 2020, minutes of closed session February 3rd, 2020, minutes of closed session February 6th, 2020, minutes of closed session February 13th, 2020, financial report January 20, 2020, gifts in the amount of $29,495.04 for the period of January 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2020. Payment of all bills in the amount of $4,587,478.49. And net payroll in the amount of $3,500,000 $52,314.56 for the period of January 1st, 2020 through January 31st, 2020. Human Resources Employment Report, Referendum Timeline, Scheduled 2020 Summer Fall Meetings and 2021 Winter Spring Meetings, and finally, proposed changes to Policy 830, Use of School Facilities. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Dr. Bica, and a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Lyon. Please, let's do the roll call.
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner Gu,
Yes.
Commissioner Nordin,
Yes.
Commissioner Bica,
Yes.
Commissioner Harder.
Yes.
The consent agenda has been approved. The next point in the agenda is individually considered resolutions. Our first item in this section is the Montessori contract renewal. We received copies of this contract renewal, and in our last sessions, there were some observations to several items that were sent to the attorneys for inclusion in the document. So I'm going to list those modifications to the language. As it refers to time to obtain licensure in 6C, it says the certification for the administrator of the school must be completed no later than 2 years from the date of hire. Originally, it said 4 years. And time to obtain licensure, 7A, for licensure by individuals in the charter school. Certification must be completed no later than 2 years from date of hire unless extended by administrator for cause. Originally, it stated 4 years. Calendar clarification in item 11 of the contract. I think the clarification there was with number 4, flexibility in the school calendar related to professional development. Our understanding is the Montessori school aligns their professional development with Montessori frame, and I think that's a good practice. That's the practice that we have been completing, right? The next item is class size allocation, 3F. I'm not sure what was the clarification here.
Within the staffing allocated by the school district.
Oh, okay.
Give some flexibility about how to use it.
Will you explain that?
So each of the elementary schools receives staffing allocations based on the class size that have been set by school board policy. So this just clarifies that the number of schools per section within staffing allocated within the district, they have some flexibility in how they use that staffing, but they get staffing based on the number of students that are enrolled in the school.
Thank you, Dr. Hardwick. Then we have on 31A, the term of this contract is for a 3-year period commencing July 1st, 2020 and terminating in June 30th, 2023. The original contracts, the original document said 5 years. So we're bringing it down to 3 years. And then finally, we have two more items. The busing, the 4K busing on number 23 of the contract. It is not possible for us to grant 4K busing, so we'll remove that from the language. And the diversity plan, Dr. Vika, you requested a report on the diversity plan. The language of number 9 says here in the contract, the administrator shall provide its student diversity plan to the ECASD board upon request. So there's always a possibility to get an update of the plans. Those were the amendments to the document. If you are ready to approve the contract in these terms, then we need a motion. Or commentary?
Could I, yeah.
Yes.
I think it was point 23 on the transportation, and that was going to be removed, but my copy, it doesn't have it removed, I don't think.
That's why I'm saying
it will be.
It will be removed. Any other question?
I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Beacon?
So I appreciate the change to the renewal for a 3-year term from the 5-year term to work on the diversity plan. I'm wondering, can we ask for reporting, perhaps interim reporting, perhaps on an annual basis?
We do. We can, certainly.
Okay. I don't like people to be surprised, so I would like to hear at least once a year about diversity goals, assessments, and outcomes with evidence.
We will introduce that in the language of the contract then. And number 9, instead of upon request, should say on an annual basis. Any other edit or commentary? If not, then we're ready to receive a motion.
I would move that we approve the contract with the changes so noted.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyon. And a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Nordin. Let's do a roll call.
Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Commissioner Torres?
Yes.
Commissioner Vu?
Yes.
Commissioner Nordin?
Yes.
Commissioner Vika?
Yes.
Commissioner Harder?
Yes.
We have renewed the contract with Chippewa Valley Montessori Charter School. Thank you very much. Our next point in the agenda is communication to staff regarding OPEB. Last week, we had this language. Can we read the language that we approved? Somewhere?
Yep, I'm pulling it up in just one moment. Oops.
Can you please read it? I cannot read small caption here.
This board has concluded its changes to OPEB, health, dental, and stipend for the 2019-2020 school year. This board also recommends that any future changes to OPEB which may be enacted include a minimum of a full fiscal year grace period. Changes enacted during a fiscal year would not be applied earlier than the end of the following fiscal year.
Any commentaries or edits to this language?
That statement is for only this current fiscal year?
Yes,
comment.
Commissioner Harder?
I think the intention of the language was that it would be a kind of a standing recommendation. Is that to avoid the sharp turn and unexpected, the question of people worrying about whether to retire, this month. Is it going to happen this month? Is it going to happen next month? No, we intend to operate this way, where we have that sort of grace period. That's how I understood the language, but.
Thank you. Is it clear for you, Commissioner Lyons? Good. Any other question? No. Then those who, I need a motion to approve this language.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Harder, and a second. Second by Dr. Bica. All those who approve, please say aye. Aye. Those who oppose? Those who abstain?
Me.
2 abstentions and 4 yeas. Thank you very much. The language has been approved. Our next item is the district calendar 2020-2021.
Good evening. At the last board meeting, we brought forward the calendar committee's original proposal related to the 2020-2021 school year calendar. We have a whole year to get used to saying that, but somehow I don't think it's ever going to happen. After that meeting, the school board had asked for a couple of variations to be brought forward to tonight's board meeting. So what you have before you is 3 different versions. So the first one is the calendar committee's original proposal, which we had shared with you at the last board meeting, and then 2 more proposals. The first one, and each proposal was so that we could look at aligning the district's spring break with UWEC. And so the first one, which is option A, as you can see in March, we align the 2 spring breaks together, and then in this one, maybe if you scroll down a little bit, the result of this alignment in March means that the December change, the change comes in December. So in the calendar committee's original proposal, December 23rd was the beginning of winter break, and so in this option, to align the spring breaks together results in an additional school day and work day in December, and that would be December 23rd, meaning that winter break doesn't start until December 24th. And then in option B, again, aligning the spring breaks together in March makes the change come in June, where it just pushes the entire calendar back a day. So in the original plan, students ended on June 3rd on Thursday, so this pushes that back to June 4th on Friday, which then means that the staff comes back for their final day on Monday, June 7th. So as you can see, it pushes the whole calendar back by 1 day. The additional information that was asked for, did you have that in the, thank you, I'm sorry. Other information that was asked for by the board was for us to look at other communities that had UW systems and compare how the public school district calendar and the UW system calendar aligned in terms of spring breaks and whether or not those were the same or different. And so you can see that in the current calendar, the 2019-2020 calendar, you can see there that there are the majority of them, well, almost. There's 2, 4, is that 5 or 6 that are different, depending on the community. And then if we scroll down a little bit, then we also have the same information for the 2020-2021 school year calendar. And the only one on here that is yet to be determined is, of course, ours, because we're talking about that tonight. So we did go ahead and survey each one of those communities and figure out which have the same and which have different calendars. So depending on the community, sometimes they're the same, sometimes they are different. It's not always consistent. And then the final piece of information, I believe, had to do with how many short weeks, which would be less than 5 days, and then how many long weekends each of the calendars had. So currently, we have 11 in the current calendar that we have. We have 11 short weeks in our calendar, which then has 5 long weekends. In the original proposal from the calendar committee, we had a proposal that resulted in 10 short weeks and 6 long weekends. And then option A and option B each had 11 short weeks and 7 long weekends. And the reason that you see the difference there for the 2020-21 original proposed calendar from the calendar committee was, I believe, Mr. Schmidt, a result of the information from the Family Advisory Council that indicated that they were looking for less interruption to their daily lives and the amount of time that they were going to have to try to modify daycare in their home situations. So that was the result of creating, one long weekend versus multiple short weeks. So that was the change from our current situation to what the calendar committee had originally proposed. I believe I covered all the information that the board had asked us to dive into. So questions for either Mr. Schmidt or myself regarding what you were looking
Any
for?
questions? I don't see any.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful. So now we need to make a decision. Right?
A or B.
Original, A or B. What's your preference? I'm counting to 30. Dr. Nordin.
So I recognize that there are several people affiliated with the university on this board. I think most of our families are probably not university affiliated, and they've asked to have fewer long weekends, therefore fewer needs to cover childcare on those days. And so while I realize it's an imposition on those families that are affiliated with the university, I think maybe to my mind, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So I'm not going to object to any of them, but I would favor the original one brought forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Vu?
I'd just like to maybe have someone reiterate what the family committee, the parent advisory group, what would they have to say?
They wanted less interruptions, less time or less opportunities to try to find childcare. So rather than, we used to have where we had back-to-back 3-day weekends, they preferred that to be just one 4-day weekend instead of having different events, to have it as single events.
Would that be original, A, B?
The original would be more like that. Because what you end up with is a 5-day week, and then you end up with a 4-day week right after that, so you have to find childcare for spring break. Then you're going to have to find childcare again the next week on the Easter weekend.
Thank you.
Any other questions or commentaries? Are you ready to vote? Yes, so can we do a roll call?
Is there a motion for one of the options?
Oh, well, yes, there's a motion for, no, I don't know.
I will move to adopt the original calendar as proposed.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. So we are going to vote yea or nay for the original calendar.
Commissioner Lyons,
Yes.
Commissioner Torres,
No.
Commissioner Vu,
Yes.
Commissioner Nordine,
Yes.
Commissioner Bica,
Yes.
Commissioner Harder.
Yes.
We have a calendar. Thank you very much. The next point in the agenda are a set of petitions. Since we have the authors of the petitions in the audience, I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow public comment.
I'd motion to suspend the rules for public comment.
Thank you very much. Thank you, I appreciate that. And our first petition comes from Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, requesting to alter school district boundaries. Are they here in the audience? They are not. Kim?
We learned from the other district involved in that petition that a vote was held in that district and the request was denied. So I believe the Andersons chose not to come tonight.
So we don't have to vote for it? Yes, we still do.
Yes.
Okay. So they are requesting to remove their property from Eliva Strum School District and to attach it to the Eau Claire School District. That's their petition, right? And that is the map.
Their property is the yellow tannish area that is circled, or the property in the petition is circled on the map. The pink signifies Eau Claire School District.
And what is the rationale for the request?
I think 4 out of 5. I believe that there are, I don't remember if it's Maida, perhaps you can help, if it's 4 or 5 properties or 6 properties in that area? Sure. So there are 6 properties, and I believe 5 children involved, and 4 of the 5 children already attend the Eau Claire School District through open enrollment.
Will this benefit our district?
I believe it will.
Any questions? Commissioner Lyon?
Yes, since the other school district denied both districts have to approve this for it to be granted, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of a moot point?
That
Well,
is
they can
true.
appeal,
The
right?
family can appeal.
They can appeal
all
to
right.
DPI.
Thank you.
So, is there any commentary from the public? Hearing none, we will vote to accept or I'll need a motion to accept the petition or...
Can I just ask a
Oh,
quick
yeah,
question?
yeah, so I didn't see your light.
So I'm taking that it's the recommendation of the district to go ahead, approve, in light of history and future consequence.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, I would need a motion to approve this request.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Those who approve the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those who oppose? Those who abstain? The petition has been accepted. Thank you very much. The next petition comes from Mr. John and Jessica Magnusson.
I believe the other district is voting as well tonight, so barring by location, they weren't able to attend.
They are requesting to detach property from the Fall Creek School District and to attach it to the Eau Claire School District. This petition will benefit the Eau Claire School District in the same way that prior would if the appeal is granted. I would need a motion to approve the petition.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lyon, and a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vu. All those who approve.
Point of order, I think
Yes,
we
sir.
can have discussion on the motion. I think
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Beaker may have had a question prior to the motion, so I'd like to hear it if,
Ms. Cole, can you help me to better understand the map and where the property is in relation to Fall Creek property?
I can. So the map that you see on the right-hand side, left-hand side, right-hand side, over there, that map. The green is Eau Claire, gray is Fall Creek School District. So their property right now sits on that area that is circled. Their property actually goes all the way down to, I believe it's Highway Q, Olson Drive, and what they're looking to do is split the property in half and put that upper part of the property in the Eau Claire School District. There's an access road there, and you can see that that section is already near, it's on a boundary for Eau Claire.
Do you have any other question, Dr. Beaker? Commissioner Nordin? Okay, so we're ready to vote. Those who approve the petition, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose? And those who abstain? Thank you. The petition has been approved. The third petition comes from Mr. and Mrs. Kenneth and Kelly Books. And they are present. Mr. Books.
Is there a way to turn on the? Okay. All right, thank you.
Please say your name and state your address.
Kenneth Books, 1121 40th Street, Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing our annexation petition tonight. My wife Kelly is unable to make it because she is attending the Elk Mountain School Board meeting. This is the second time we're coming to you with a petition. Some of you may remember us from February of 2017 when we filed with our neighbors for 6 total properties. Much of the discussion at the time focused on the tax revenue associated with those properties moving districts for the benefit of our 4 kids. We heard from a number of then board members that it was simply too much. Keeping that feedback in mind, we're coming this time with only our property. Before I get into the 7 criteria outlined in the state statute surrounding the annexation petitions, I want to share some stuff about how our family got to this point and why we have come back with another petition. We have 4 kids. In 2011, we open enrolled our oldest, who was then 4 years old, into the Elk Mound School District. We followed his application up with a second in 2013, a third in 2015, and a fourth in 2017. Now, sometime between the application for the third and the fourth, open enrollment special education law changed in the state of Wisconsin. And as a result, school districts revised their open enrollment policies and began setting available seats for open enrolled kids with disabilities to 0. Now, in short, kids who identified as needing any services, no matter how small, would be denied their acceptance into the open enrollment program or removed from their open enrolled district if they began to decline academically after their enrollment was accepted. Now, we are here because these changes put our children at risk. Okay? This is devastating for families heavily invested in open enrollment, most especially when they have multiple children enrolled and one of them risks losing their open enrolled status because of a disability. Children who are well adapted, well adjusted, and successful students have lost their educational stability. The open enrollment program offers them no protection. I have 2 very real and very relevant stories to share with you. Both come directly from my experience as a parent of open enrolled kids. Our oldest signed up for tackle football this last season. He loves the game, and in 7th grade, flag football is no longer an option through the school. Now, aside from my fear that he might break an arm or his collarbone, I worried about his brain, spinal injuries, not just because every parent worries about those things, but because if he sustained one of those injuries on the football field and in some way led to a permanent physical or cognitive impairment that would require either a classroom aide, a paraprofessional, or special education services of any sort, he would have to leave his current school and return to his resident district. 0 available seats for open enrolled kids means 0 seats. It wouldn't matter that he had received the life-altering injury on the school grounds in a school-sponsored program. It wouldn't matter that he'd been an honor roll student for the last 3 years. His space in the district is not protected. Any changes in his ability to function in the normal classroom would result in him losing his place in the school. The second example I'd like to share is something our family is currently dealing with. One of our kids is struggling. It's been suggested that perhaps they should be evaluated to see if they would benefit from some sort of special education services. Well, the problem here is that there are 0 seats available for open enrolled students in all of the special education programs. If we discover that our child is indeed eligible for services, even if it equates to 10 minutes of speech therapy a day, they will have to leave their school and return to their home district, which is Eau Claire. This scenario presents many challenges to our family, and quite frankly, no one comes out a winner. When we were here in 2017, we were asked why we didn't just sell our house and move into the Elk Mound district. We shared that we'd been looking for comparable, suitable, and affordable housing and had been unsuccessful at locating any within the Elk Mound district. We've continued looking for the last 3 years. And obviously, we've been unsuccessful. I'm sure it is a question that may come up again tonight. As of Saturday afternoon, there were 0 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom homes for sale in the Elk Mound district, and the largest 4-bedroom home available was 1,200 square feet smaller than our current home and priced out of our range. This is an accurate representation of what we have encountered over the last 3 years. Now, when we were here in 2017, we were asked, why didn't you return all of your kids to the Eau Claire district in the event that open enrollment failed one of them. And we explained that our kids had no desire to move districts. Okay. They were fully invested in their current situation. That hasn't changed. They all call the Elk Mound district home. None of them would like to return to the Eau Claire district, especially the one who's currently struggling. Families who were already using open enrollment prior to 2016-2017 changes did not anticipate ending up being collateral damage. We could not have predicted the effect those changes might have had on our family, and we hadn't considered that our child might teeter on the edge of success and risk ending up in a district by themselves. Essentially, we are here again because the open enrollment program no longer provides any protection to our open enrolled students. After our 2017 petition, the one we filed with our neighbors was denied because the dollar amount was considered too high. We looked for other ways to permanently enter the Elk Mound district. As I've stated, we've continued to look for different housing without success. In February of 2019, we saw the perfect opportunity to move our property into the Elk Mound district without Eau Claire experiencing any loss. In February of 2019, 4 petitions came before the Eau Claire School Board for annexation. 2 of those petitions were from families who wanted to be in Elk Mound, and the other 2 wanted to be in Eau Claire. The board approved all 4 of these petitions in favor of what the property owners wanted. Unfortunately for the 2 who wanted to be in Eau Claire, Elk Mound did not approve their petitions. We contacted one of those families whose petition failed. Their property was comparable in value to ours, and they wanted to get into Eau Claire, while we wanted to move to Elk Mound. They were in favor of swapping our 2 properties between the districts. This just shows, if it will. Now, shortly after my conversation with this property owner, I contacted Kim Kohler's office with the appropriate information for the district to execute a school district-initiated territory detachment attachment. Wisconsin Statute 117.13 allows for 2 districts to attach and detach properties using an adopted board resolution. It's not a complicated process. The challenges faced by the 2 property owners would have been resolved, and neither school district would have suffered. After some back and forth with Ms. Kohler's office during the month of March, we supplied some tax documents, left voicemails looking for updates, had some follow-up conversations with the other property owners. We were informed in early April by Ms. Kohler the Eau Claire district was not going to entertain a property swap that would not be moving forward with our collective request. Neither property owner received any other explanation, and you can imagine how frustrating this was. Faced with no other options, we filed this petition in August of 2019. Wisconsin Statute 117 outlines the 7 criteria to be considered when deciding whether to approve an annexation petition for a specific property. The statute states, in making any decision under Statute 117.08 to 117.132, the school board shall consider the following factors as they affect the educational welfare of all the children residing in all of the affected school districts, and may consider other factors. These factors are presented in full on the agenda item report in your board docs. Now, I'll only be outlining the main points of the factors 1 through 5 because they are relevant to our specific petition. Factors 6 and 7 are not applicable, so I won't include any information about those going forward. As for the first, the geographical and topographical characteristics of the affected school districts, including the estimated travel time to and from school for pupils in the school districts. Our property is 5.1 miles from the Elk Mound Elementary School, 5.3 miles from the middle school, and 5.2 miles from the Elk Mound High School. It takes approximately 7 to 8 minutes of drive time by car to reach the schools. The current school attendance area for our kids in the Eau Claire district has them at Sherman Elementary, DeLong Middle School, and North High School. Sherman and DeLong are 0.2 miles further away from our property than their Elk Mound counterparts, and North High School is 1.9 miles further. Now, at first glance, the differences in these distances may seem insignificant, but when you extrapolate them out for the equivalent of one kid's educational journey, the differences are astounding. Over the course of their education from kindergarten through 12th grade, they would travel 2,952 more miles to the Eau Claire schools and spend an additional 17 to 18.5 full days of their life traveling. Don't think these are significant numbers to consider. A round-trip drive from Eau Claire to Miami is 2,912 miles. Still 40 miles less than what our kids would travel to get to school. A trip to the moon and back takes about 6 days. They could visit the moon 3 times and still have 12 hours to spare. Now, if our kids travel by bus to these schools, they'll ride an additional 14 minutes a day on an Eau Claire bus during their years in middle school, adding 42 hours a year or 126 hours over their three years there. It takes 19 hours to fly from Eau Claire to Antarctica, and our kids could do a round trip every year of middle school. Now, we didn't need to extrapolate the bus information for the high schools. They're similar to the middle school times, and we'd only be using high school busing for 1 year. After that, we'd have a student driver. The second factor to be considered relates to the district's ability to meet the educational needs of all the children residing in the affected school districts. The educational programs currently offered by those districts and their ability and commitment to meet those needs and continue to offer those programs. Now, our reorganization does not impact either district's ability to offer educational programs. It does not affect the educational needs of other children residing in the district. What it does do is gives our chosen district the ability to meet our child's needs. It allows them to fully commit to providing access to the programs they need to be successful. The third factor is consideration of the testimony and written statements filed by the residents of the affected school districts. I spoke about some of this at the beginning of my presentation. Keeping our children in the current district is very important to them and us. They deserve stability in their education. They should not have to fear every hit in football or every failed test. Keeping them together is also very important. We cannot have one child in the Eau Claire district and the other 3 in Elk Mound. They should not be separated. There is simply no way for us to balance 2 districts. In 2017, we were told that the 2 districts aren't that incompatible, and it wouldn't be hard for us to make it work. This couldn't be farther from reality. Okay, when I spoke with Student Transit about the bus pickup from my time for my child who would need to leave Elk Mound if special education services were determined necessary, I was told the bus would be at my house at 7:55 in the morning. 7:55 in the morning is the bell time at Mound View Elementary. At 7:55 in the morning, there's no one home. Are we supposed to leave our child out by the road by themselves? Student Transit also told me that drop-off time for this child would be at 4:35. My other children have after-school activities 3 to 4 days a week. Pickup time for these activities is 4:30. At 4:35, nobody's home. So is our child supposed to hang out in our yard alone until someone gets home to unlock the door? We are required to provide our own transportation for our open enrolled students. How are we supposed to work around these conflicts? Beyond that, the scheduled breaks and teacher in-services days don't align. This year, Elk Mountain has spring break the week of March 9th through the 13th. Eau Claire spring break is March 23rd through the 27th. How are we supposed to work around this? The fourth factor outlined in the statute is the estimated fiscal effect of the proposed reorganization on the affected school districts, including the effect of the apportionment of assets and liabilities. Basically, the criteria that talks about where the money goes and how it changes things for the district. Now, I know from experience that the fourth factor is one considered most important to the detaching district. We heard lots of discussion about the money in 2017. It was the reason for our previous denial. Your detailed agenda item report, the one available on board docs, states that the district would forfeit $339,400 in property value and $4,239.97 in real estate taxes. This is not actually correct. The total amount of net property taxes we pay is $4,239.97. This is, however, not the amount the school district receives. The portion of our property taxes paid to the Eau Claire School District is actually $2,261.08 of that larger total. The rest of our tax payment goes to Chippewa County, the town of Wheaton, and CVTC. If we divide the actual amount received by the district by the students who currently attend, which I believe is around 11,554, we're looking at about 20 cents per student loss. According to an October 2019 news article which appeared in weau.com, total revenue received by the Eau Claire district for this school year was $163,918,455. Our $2,261.08 in property tax makes up an insignificant 0.00013% of that amount. This amount is so insignificant that it will easily be absorbed by the current developments and new home construction in Sherman Estates, the Jeffers Road area, High Claire development, Oakwood Mall, the area recently rezoned West Duquesne Road. I mean, if we apply the same tax revenue value to the Elk Mound district, and we understand that the values may not match exactly, our $2,261.08 divided by 1,206 students equates to approximately $1.87 per student. This is a substantial amount for a small district to gain. The benefit to Elk Mound is 9 times greater than the loss to Eau Claire. This is especially relevant since Elk Mound doesn't have 5 major areas of residential development right this minute. Obviously, we have school-age kids. So in addition to our property tax dollars, we have to address the per-student aid each district receives from the state. Right now, the Eau Claire District keeps $2,241 for each one of our open enrolled students. This adds up to a total of $8,964, and when added to the tax amount, changes the 20 cents to a 97-cent loss per student in the Eau Claire District. This still is only 0.0006847% of the total revenue brought in by the district. It is important to note that this aid money is not a guarantee. The only money the district is guaranteed to receive from our property is the $2,261.08, that 20 cents per student. If we ever managed to find a new home and sold ours to a family without school-age children, the amount received in state aid drops to zero. If we decide to homeschool our children, that number again drops to zero. In 2017, we were asking the district to release 6 properties to Elk Mound. Total amount of the loss to the Eau Claire per student in tax revenue was approximately $1.20. This time, we're looking at a 1/6 of that. Now, the WEAU article I had talked about reported a total revenue for the Eau Claire that exceeded expenses by $127,108. The revenue associated with our property has almost zero impact on the Eau Claire District. The 5th factor to acknowledge is whether the proposed reorganization will make any parts of the school district's territory non-contiguous. This was the primary reason we approached annexation with our neighbors in 2017. We believed that island parcels were prohibited by the statute 117 and that the 5th criteria was simply a yes or a no factor. Turns out that's actually not true. The language and the purpose of the 5th factor, the legislation behind it, and the creation of the island parcels were at the center of the 1996 Wisconsin Supreme Court case of Stockbridge versus DPI. One party believed island parcels were not supported by law, and the parcels that created non-contiguous borders could not intentionally be detached. The other side believed the opposite. After much deliberation over the legislature's intended purpose of including the 5th factor and interpretation of the statutory language, the Supreme Court concluded that Statute 117.12 does not require a detaching parcel to border the school district of attachment, and that the legislative history indicates that the legislature intended to allow the detachment of island parcels. Whether or not a reorganization makes any part of a school district territory non-contiguous does not affect educational welfare of the children residing in either district. The red star in this map is the district line. It's 1,677 feet from our property line. Many of the 20 islands currently associated with the Eau Claire District are more than 1,677 feet from the district they now belong to. In 2017, some board members had concerns about the people who would be living in our home in 50 to 100 years. They stated that future residents may not want to own a parcel surrounded by a different district. I have 2 thoughts on that. The first, there's no guarantee that there will be brick and mortar school buildings or hardline school districts in 50 to 100 years. Online schools are already gaining traction in all areas of education. The second, if the future owners of our property don't like living in an island parcel, they can file their own petition to alter the lines. This reorganization petition is not about children who haven't been born yet. It is about the children who live on this property right now. If the 5 factors that are relevant to this reorganization are carefully examined, they indicate that our property is closer to the Elk Mound schools, overall travel time is decreased by our attendance there, our chosen district needs our residency in order to commit to providing certain programs, our children cannot be split between 2 districts, and their current status in our chosen district is at risk. The financial impact of our detachment on the Eau Claire district is at best a 0.0006847% decrease in revenue, and island parcels already exist that are associated with the Eau Claire district. You may have noticed I have 2 of my boys with me tonight. They're members of the Eau Claire Boy Scout Troop 71. One of their rank advancement requirements is to attend a public meeting. They chose to come with me tonight because this meeting, of all the public meetings that happen in this area every month, is the one that 100% affects their lives. If you'd like to ask them about changing districts, go ahead. They understand the process and the impact the outcome will have on them. They know the stress my wife and I have faced. They know about the constant house hunting. They are aware that some people will look at their situation and see only dollar signs. But they also know that they are not a form of currency to be traded. The last thing I want to share with you before I answer any questions, and you have a discussion about the factors involved, is this box right here. In 2017, one of the board members stated there were avenues for us to take other than annexation. They said we just hadn't explored them fully. This box holds all the information about those other avenues. It is full of dead ends. How many more boxes do we need to fill? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions about the petition?
I'll ask the same question. Ms. Kohler, can you help me understand so that I'm sure I understand the relation of the property to Eau Claire and Elk Mound?
I can help with that. So what you see up on the screen is the property highlighted in yellow and circled. The green boundary area is the Eau Claire Area School District. The gray boundary area is Elk Mound.
Any other question or commentary? Commissioner Wu?
I want to ask a innocent but legal question. Has there been in the history where we vote in favor of the request, but only relevant for such time until all the children are out of the system?
Any vote is a permanent decision.
Thank you.
Any other question? Commissioner Lai?
How many island properties do we have that are similar to this?
I don't know that answer. I'm looking at Abby because this used to be out of her office. I don't know that answer. You saw earlier tonight that the Oliva properties are an island within Eau Claire School District looking to come to Eau Claire. So they do exist. They exist. There were some islands, Mr. Brooks referenced the petitions, I think, last spring, some detachment or reattachment to Elk Mound. And they were part of the clerical error that was discovered at the county level that had been made decades ago. And the property owners, for those of you that were on the board at that time, the property owners believed they were in one district or attending one district, and then the clerical error was discovered that said they actually belonged to another district, and that was the kind of rectifying that clerical error from several decades ago.
Any other questions or commentaries? Yeah, Ms. Kohler?
I just want to clarify also about open enrollment, if I could. You probably recall in January, I usually share information about open enrollment and programs that we recommend to be open and closed, and then the board votes on those. A district is not required to have their special education programming closed. So if you recall to our January vote, we closed cluster programming, but the remainder of our special education programming is open to students who have IEPs. So if a student were open enrolled to the Eau Claire School District and then qualified for special education services, unless those services were cluster programming types of services, they would remain in the Eau Claire School District even if they had an IEP or required additional services.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? Commissioner Lyons?
In the board docs, it does state that $4,239 of tax would be lost. Is that, I think there was some conflicting information.
Yep, so the 4239.97 is the total of the property tax bill, and so that is our mistake. It's the total property tax bill. It wasn't split out into all of the different taxing authorities.
Any other question? If not, then I'll need entertain a motion to approve the petition. A motion to approve the petition is well, we need to vote. If we don't have a motion, we cannot vote, and we cannot accept the position.
I'll move it for the purposes of stepping ahead.
And a second?
I would second that.
Okay. So those who approve the petition to detach from Eau Claire and attach to Elk Mound, please say aye. Those who oppose, same sign.
Okay.
Aye. Those who abstain? Thank you. The petition has been denied. Our next point in the agenda is Eau Claire Virtual School Proposal.
Good evening. We're going to bring a proposal to you for an expansion of the virtual school and a little bit of an update of what we've been experiencing this year. Joining me is our Vice President of the Eau Claire Virtual School, Missy Crisp. Our president is enjoying some warmth in the tropics, so she is not able to join us this evening. So one thing to keep in mind is that the virtual school expansion only requires a vote for your approval to expand. It does not require that we amend the contract. We've checked with the legal advice. So just to be aware, if we do this, that's a step that does not need to take place. As we go through the proposal tonight, if you have suggestions, we'll make any changes that you suggest to bring hopefully back on March 2nd.
So what we'll be pointing out tonight with the proposal is how the growth of the school actually aligns with the strategic plan for the district. So as Jim had mentioned, I'm one of the board members for the virtual school, but I've also had the opportunity to serve as a mentor for one of the students, and it's been a great experience to do that for a variety of reasons, and I'll cover that a little bit more in a bit. But it's been amazing to see how this school has met some very unique needs that, quite frankly, we didn't even anticipate. Some of these needs that came up with the students. You know, when we think about education, it's very easy for people to think about it as just the books, you know, what you see in the classroom. But for many of these students, they're dealing with many other issues, whether it's cultural or mental health issues. And so it's been amazing to see how this school has been able to meet those needs of the students and guarantee their success for education at the same time. So we'll move ahead to the mission. And this is where it's really been especially beautiful to see with the student that I've been able to mentor. When she started the school year, she went from basically feeling very hopeless and feeling like there was no future in terms of education for her. You know, what she had her sights set on was getting to graduation, and who knows what happens after that. And so this is a child who, in the matter of just a few months, is now talking about college and looking at what career opportunities there are for her. And unfortunately, that wasn't a way of thinking that she had prior to this virtual school. So it's really been amazing to see how this virtual school has been able to grab those kids and keep them from falling through the cracks. This school district has an amazing reputation for education, and so it's been great to see the virtual school complement that and take these students along the way with that. Yeah.
I had to figure out how we move up here together. So the original impetus behind the school, if you recall, was to try to bring back students who were leaving us, in particular for virtual schooling. So we have some soft data, and by soft data, it's what's reported to us by students, about students that have stayed with the district, but for a variety of reasons that we might have lost. So we estimate when you get to the 1% sounds a little like 91% sounds pretty detailed, but we have 21 students that we've asked in some respect, and 52% of the students that are with the virtual school right now had planned to leave had we not existed. 13% open enrolled to us because we existed, and 26% enrolled in the Eau Claire Area School District because we had a program. So they were perhaps with the private school in town and then just decided to enroll with the district. So they're not an open enrolling case. And so of that, 91%, so we thought originally was let's go grab the kids that are open enrolling out. We're finding that's a mixed bag. And so as Missy said, some of the things are unintended that we didn't expect that have actually been pretty interesting for us to find out along the way, that we're finding a home for people through several conversations, and we're finding the students are working their way back also into our brick and mortar schools as well, which we'll talk about soon. So right now we know we have interest for more. One of the things that's hard to quantify is a virtual school does appeal to, it has a bit more of a fluid feel to it. We had capacity up to 28 students. We really didn't fill right away, and then suddenly, right when the school year came upon us, we had a load of interest. We have right now 23 students. We'll be of 28. We eventually had to just put a deadline at each semester to say no more. It's pretty hard to start virtual programming deep into a semester to try to stay on a schedule. So of the 23, 2 will be graduating. Pretty exciting. So we're going to have our first graduation ceremony. I think it's the day before the other 2 high schools graduate. 21 are expected to continue with us. So that leaves 7 spots available to fill to our 28. We have 40 on the wait list. We know that all 40 will not stay with the concept. The number's already shrunk from it was in the 50s, it's already come down a little bit. We have lots of conversations about good fit, and eventually some of those students find their way again back to different options for the district, the brick and mortar. We also find, number 3, that this has changed the conversations also in our schools, where the brick and mortar schools are finding some virtual hybrid options for their students. That was already going on, but some of those have expanded in areas that we didn't expect, where a student needed just a little bit of a softer pacing, and the hybrid option has worked for them as well. So it's really changed those conversations again with the brick and mortar schools that we have in the district.
So the two main needs that we've noticed for the students, or the reason for the need for the virtual school, is the interruptions to learning for a variety of reasons, and then also the preference for a non-traditional learning environment. And we feel that the virtual school has been successful in providing that. And really the end goal is to provide student success in terms of their education. And as Jim mentioned, sometimes that means getting the student back into the brick and mortar school. Sometimes it means having a combination of that. And so it's been great to be able to offer that to the students. And then also when we look at further ahead for the shared values between the district and the virtual school, it's been great to see how the virtual school is complementing the district and working hand in hand with that, rather than seeing it as a complete separate entity. Drew and I had a conversation about that earlier tonight. It's, how the virtual school is not a standalone school, but rather we are working on the same goals, and in many cases we're working on getting these students back into the brick and mortar setting. And with the equitable experience, so having access to all of the different extracurriculars and the blended approach where, as we've mentioned before, in some cases a student may do all of their schooling at home. In some cases they may do some of their classes at one of the brick and mortar schools, North or Memorial, and even in some cases being able to take the college level classes through the technical school. So quite a few opportunities available for them. So our next steps, when we put together this proposal, we looked at the feasibility of it, the sustainability, and the local resources that are available to the students. And we're very confident that this school can provide all of these things as we grow. We do want to focus on more of a slower growth with this school, and you'll notice that when we get to the numbers for what we're asking you to approve. We would like the slower growth so we can really focus on guaranteeing that success, not just for the school, but most importantly for the students and for the staff involved. So the numbers that we had looked at when we discussed this, we would love to expand the grades 6 through 12. We currently have grades 6 through 12. We'd like to expand that a bit by allowing more students in. But we would also love to start venturing into the grades 4 and 5. And with that, that's going to be a little bit different than what we have with grades 6 through 12. So it's going to change gears a bit there. Currently, we use Pearson Connexus for curriculum. The feedback that we get quite a bit, and I just, as being a parent and having used virtual schools in the past, the feedback that we hear quite a bit from parents is they're very impressed with the Eau Claire School District, and they love what the district has to offer. And so what we would like to do is for grades 4 and 5 is eventually get into transitioning to the school's own curriculum rather than using Pearson Connexus. And so for the first year, we would still continue to use Pearson Connexus for the sake of, I'll put it lightly, our sanity. It's a big jump to do that, and so we'd like to ease into that again, just to assure success, with the intent that the year after that will give that teacher the time to start developing curriculum. And so those are the two things that we're mainly looking at for expansion.
So to go through each of those 3 areas that Missy talked about, on the feasibility, again, we did the Pearson Connexus. And then the challenges is, of course, a couple with the two different groups. So we have the secondary. Before we hire our own teachers to do that, you have a volume challenge in front of us. So when you have about 28 students at the secondary level, or potentially even 42, They're not all at the same grade level, so if you want to hire a teacher in each of the content areas, there's a scale of that doesn't apply yet. You need to really get towards almost a couple hundred kids before you start hiring your own staff to be the ones that do the grading and are the individuals interacting. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. One is you have the content, and that's what we'll talk to what Missy was just referring to, that you're still using that Pearson content, that you actually have the human being that is doing the instruction. And really the secondary, as we slowly scale up, eventually we want to start to move towards a model where it's our people, but it's going to take us a little bit to get there. At the elementary, because it would be a 4 or 5 and that requires just one licensure, that could be our teacher. And so that's the part where you start to look at that licensure piece where you just need an elementary licensure. And that first year, in terms of the challenges, when we start looking at that locally built virtual resource, is to use the Pearson content, but have it be our person being the instructor as opposed to the Pearson people being the instructor. And then over the course of that first year, to invest time into making it our content. So that in this is Kay was saying 2020, 21, to go 2021, 22, it would be not just our teacher, but our content as well. And so, and then each one of these pieces, a little bit more detail, is again, that slow growth model, to try to use our existing staff to try to build, and because these require lots of meetings with families, because it is a little bit of a leap for them in terms of what they're getting into, so it takes a lot of support to make that happen. We also, a couple initial solutions about being local as well. So there is the part about having local built content, but we do also provide office hours every Friday at the library. We get decent attendance at those. We have community learning experiences, we have lots of one-on-one meetings, and we do have a counselor who shares part of his time from the off-campus program to work with our virtual students as well. So we do try to create as local a feel as we can, which has gotten us a lot of positive feedback from our families. So if we look at the feasibility of the position, so if the board were to approve the elementary, or at our March meeting, then we would hire a candidate, and then we would start that training and planning for the first year. And again, we would use that Pearson platform, but then building our own over the course of the year, and then implementing that for the 4th graders, and then build the 5th grade content the next year. That could get accelerated if we find some success early. It'll probably depend on the person that we hire, and if that person is able to make that happen. There is a whole set of training for virtual learning that is different than face-to-face learning that we'd have to bring that person through in terms of designing content and interacting as well. So there'd be a lot on the plate for that person the first year. If we're able to move that up and do 4 and 5 at the same time, that would be great. We'll just have to see how that goes. But the goal, again, is to have it be the ECHD curriculum as opposed to Pearson. Again, I would like to take it one step back also. The Pearson piece was selected also because of its rigor. And as we looked at programs that had strongest success in the online environment, especially in math, Pearson quickly rose to the top. That being said, as much as we could make it ours as well, we feel like we'd have some success with that as well. Again, this is that multi-year planning, and then slowly try to get to a locally designed. And if you recall, a year ago when we had these conversations, we really were looking for locally designed. And I'm going to share with you some of the local design that we've done, even this year when we look at the budget. And then this is, again, that gradual replacement of contracted services and collaborating and creating our curriculum, and then finding more unique learning solutions for students. So if we look at this piece, this is this year, and again, we have a capacity of 28, but we're really at 23 right now. We're looking next year to get to 64. So the numbers that Missy shared, they go up by 14. That's not just a random number. The number 28 we got to because we said, okay, that's 7 different grade levels from 6 through 12. On average, it would be 4 per grade level. It doesn't exactly work out like that, but we figured that was just a way for us to come up with a number of average. And then, so that increases the average per grade level by 2. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be across the board, but it increases it by 2. And then the other 22 are for the 4 or 5. That number was chosen because the grade range for 4 or 5 is 21 to 29. We likely, we know that there's some fluctuation in terms of getting that number. So, sometimes we can think we have 22 and it might drop a little bit lower. So we may have to look at a model where we perhaps look a little bit higher because we know some people might back away as they get closer to that. But we also have waiting lists for the lottery. So, but 22, that's where that number was derived from. In terms of the revenue, you can see that these numbers are based upon, remember I said some are open enrolled, some were our students, so that's how you get those numbers. That gets into the 7,000 something for an open enroll, and 10,000 or so for the student that lives within our boundaries. We use that same ratio of students in the district and out of district to come up with this number if it were 64. And then the Pearson platform, so 100,000 here would be 208 here. The estimated teacher cost, this is the cost for a certified teacher. This is our HR cost. This number actually was a neat opportunity for us. These are local teachers this year. Pearson promised us a course that they actually didn't have a certified person. They gave us an option for another course. We tried a model where we hired a few of our family consumer sciences teachers to be able to deliver the content and do what we were talking about with the elementary person last year. So they stepped in and did that. So we did have a little experience this year, and it's gone very well. This is the laptop and other supplies. Right now we have about a quarter of our students require laptops. So again, that was something that we will provide a family if they need a laptop, we'll provide that. So this number here is an estimated amount. And again, we're not going out with budgets further because it's pretty hard to estimate what that will look like. And so we'll learn a lot more next year based on whether this number is accurate. These are field trips and community experiences. We have events at the Pablo, for example, tickets, things like that, that we run. We ran a picnic here in the park in September, so it's costs such as that. This is for state testing, so we have to have someone actually proctor state exams. And professional development, again, I talked a little bit about that. That's going to require something if we bring that person on board, we're going to have to invest some dollars. And so this is our estimated expenses. And then you can see there's a surplus there that between the revenue and the expenses. So some key dates for us to look at, given your approval, the first thing is we bumped our lottery back. It was supposed to have been last week. We did not want to have people on a waiting list and be numbers 29 through 42 and come here specifically petitioning you to approve it. We wanted the concept to be approved, not someone's individual vested interest. So we backed up the lottery a month. And so we will, and then if you delay your vote, we will delay that again and notify families. And then if we do allow for a 4-5, we would then start communicating with families to get their name in immediately. And then we would do that lottery here, and then we would start the non-resident lotteries and commitment letters, and that gets us into that process again. So this would be the timeline that we would do, and again, it's adjustable based on your schedule. If I know we went a little bit later last spring, and we got it to work, and we could do that again if we need to. Questions?
Questions from board members? Commissioner Harder?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to Dr. Hardebeck, Mr. Schmidt, all the staff that worked on this, and of course the governance board, Missy, and your board. This was an idea. I remember when it was just kind of a throw it out there as an idea, with two ideas, as I recall, which is we could first and foremost provide a better service for students who find themselves wanting this for families, and also that we could potentially give a little boost to the district budget.
Right.
And we've achieved both of those things, I feel like, based on this report, and it's just so great to see that. Thank you. So my question is, it seems to me like all sort of win-win. I think we talked when it was initially being set up about sort of the lottery being geared towards, the only thing I can think of is, somehow making it easier for students to come out of the brick and mortar schools. That's the only negative that I can think of. I don't know if you've thought about it.
You mean so a student wanting to leave brick and mortar? So when a student does express interest from one of the schools, that right away initiates a conversation with their counselor, the principal eventually is involved as well to make sure that it's the right fit. So those meetings, if someone, whether or not they are coming from our brick and mortar or coming from somewhere else, because there's a lot of, sometimes it can seem very appealing, but then you start to dig into and help them understand what it looks like, and then suddenly it doesn't look as appealing sometimes. And sometimes there is a good fit, and then we find that home for a student. So it really is there's a lot of counseling, and it's pretty time intensive.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time that goes into it.
And I imagine as being, sort of the alternative under consideration, or one of the main ones, gives us more opportunity to have those discussions.
Yes,
right?
and so sometimes we find that there's a need that could be met back at the brick and mortar school, and then our schools have been extremely accommodating to make those happen whenever they can.
Well, so yeah, I'll just say I think it's great, and I would be excited to see it expand personally. Thank you.
Any other question? Commissioner Bica?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I see, it's very exciting. I see the program as a model in many ways. And this is more of a procedure question. Well, I don't know, procedure. It's not so much a program, but thinking about your proposal. Maybe it's an opportunity, we always connect things to the strategic plan, of course, but to connect your program to the MLSS. I wonder if you would be willing to put that into the proposal that you bring back, because that would be, I think, a model.
We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
My staff is probably smiling behind me right now as you said that too. So.
Any other question or commentary? Commissioner Lyons?
I was interested in your enrollment projections beyond the 64. So into 22, 23, you have the total amount of students up to 92.
Right.
So what's that look like even 5 years after that?
So we've learned, even the only thing you would be approving for would be for next year. Even these numbers, this is what the board, the governance board, we would come back to you to really look at these numbers, because even the idea of what we're expanding right now, I couldn't have predicted this a year ago. And I think the group will look at their data in a year and may say, let's stick with this and come back. And really, that's one of the questions we're, like, is it just a simple linear projection, or does it accelerate? Part of the concern about getting too big is we may not then be as local. That's been one advantage right now, and we're starting to get interest from other schools. If you think about, for example, like the McKinley contract, where there is a certain number of seats designated for Altoona, for example. We do have at least one other district interested in that with us in the future. So the look of this already, since we've first put this proposal in with some conversations, already has changed a little bit. So that's the idea, but really right now we're looking at 2021 and coming back to you in a year.
Thank you.
Any other question? The idea of virtual was to be beyond local, right?
To be beyond?
Beyond local.
Right, but we wanted to, the initial interest was to try to capture students from the district that were leaving. So that was, and then the feedback we've gotten is, because of all of our students are from this region, they do appreciate the local nature of it. If we do get to a point where the expansion looks like it's going to reach to the corners of Wisconsin, that's a very different approach, and one we have to decide collectively whether or not we want to go down that road. I'll give you an example of where it gets a little touchy is state testing. So we'd have to try to send staff, like when we've talked with other virtual schools, they have to send staff to wherever their students are for state testing. Another one is the counseling conversations about if it's a good fit. It's so much easier to do those in person. But we could look at something at distance. It just is a different model, and we just have to, we feel like if we make this level, this step this year, it'll still feel very local for now. And if we want to really branch out, that's another conversation.
Thank you. And the line for estimated ECAC teachers, how many teachers are you talking about there?
That's just one. 93,000 is human resource. That's the number they give us for a average cost for a certified instructor. So that would be
with the fringes included?
Yeah, the fringes, yep. So that's where that number comes from.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other feedback for the proponents? Good stuff. Well, thank you very much for good stuff. And we're looking forward to receiving the proposal for our next consent agenda. Thank you. And the next point is discussion and possible first reading of proposed changes to policy 672, purchasing. Yeah, would you volunteer? Yes. Thank you.
The changes include competitive bids or quotations pertaining to employee health and/or dental insurance shall be sought at the recommendation of the district's insurance consultant. This recommendation is to assure timing of such bids or quotes are positioned to produce the greatest financial benefit for the district.
Thank you very much. My understanding is that this is what we had been already doing, but we just needed to add the language, right, Abby? Okay, good. Any commentaries on this? Then if there are no more no commentaries, we'll include this in the consent agenda for next session. Thank you very much. Our next item is discussion on possible second reading policy 185, school board committees. Okay. Okay. So this is coming back from P&G with small changes recommended. So we'll read the green parts, complete sentences. Any volunteer to read? Can do a popcorn reading? Yes? Would you like to start? Yes, thank you.
And just the changes we're targeting here? Okay, great. So I'm going to start on page 2 of 3. Advisory committees membership. One school board member shall serve in an advisory capacity as a non-voting representative to each of these district advisory committees: Eau Claire Public Schools Foundation Board, Head Start Policy and Governance Committee, School Wellness Committee, McKinley Charter School Governance Board, Montessori Charter School Governance Board, and Eau Claire Virtual School Governance Board. For the purposes of this policy, board members shall be permitted to speak at meetings to the same extent that all members are permitted to do so, but board members shall not serve as a voting member of the committee to avoid any appearance of speaking or acting on behalf of the board. Members have the responsibility of serving as a liaison between the board and committee, but shall not provide assurances or directives on behalf of the board unless given express permission by board action.
Thank you.
Pass.
You pass. Commissioner Elias? Other committees?
Other strike ad hoc committees. Strike temporary committee. The board and/or its standing committees may develop a temporary committee to investigate and report on a specific issue if doing so is warranted in the judgment of the committee. Other committees shall be appointed in the manner deemed necessary, and their duties shall be prescribed at the time of appointment. When the temporary committee completes its work, the temporary committee is automatically disbanded at the time of the final report is accepted by the school board or the committee's work is completed.
Learning Environments and Partnerships, LEAP Committee. The charge of this committee is to provide guidance and recommendations to the school board related to LEAP zones developed by ECASD staff. This committee includes two principals: educators drawn from a variety of district schools and grade levels, executive director of teaching and learning, and community members. School board members may audit the meetings but shall not provide assurances or directives on behalf of the school board unless given express permission by board action.
Demographic Trends and Facility Planning Committee. The charge of this committee is to provide data, guidance, and recommendations to the school board regarding decisions related to boundaries, expansions, facilities, and other community trends. School board members may audit the meetings but shall not provide assurances or directives on behalf of the board unless given express permission by board action.
Thank you very much. I think this picks up your commentaries from our previous session. Any other additional commentaries? Yes?
I do, and I'm sorry this didn't come up last time, but just in reviewing this afternoon, I came up with I guess you could call it a friendly amendment for consideration, which is about the LEAP. And it's the sentence in the LEAP paragraph: the charge of this committee is to provide guidance and recommendations to the school board related to LEAP zones developed by ECASD staff. And the variation I had written this afternoon for you to consider is: the charge of this committee is to provide guidance and recommendations to the school board related to the promotion and development of LEAP zones as described in policy 332. So it's a minor change to the just to reference 332, but also brings in the notion of promotion, which I think is important, that this committee can be thinking about and recommending not only about the development, but also the promotion of these, whether that means, whatever the committee comes up with. And then, again, as everything that the LEAP committee does with board approval.
Great. We'll send this back then to P&G. Thank you. Our next point of the agenda is requesting for future agenda items. Yes, Dr. Bika?
So from budget development, are we requesting for the ad hoc employee engagement committee is to have that as a placeholder in the next board meeting? Is that right?
Thank you. The agenda setting meets tomorrow at 8 a.m. here in central office. We've completed our agenda for tonight. I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Nordin, and a second? Second by Commissioner Harden. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. It's 9:05.